اللهم صل على فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها بعدد ما أحاط به علمك.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج عليهم الصلاة والسلام يا وارث الفدق والبقية المقدس بحق حق فاطمة الزهراء وبحق أهل البيت عليهم الصلاة والسلام. Respected elders, youngsters, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. In this series of the Fatimi Inspirational Insights, inshallah we shall continue in our attempt to try and unravel the eloquence of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq ala Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam to the little ability that we can as we look at the second verse of Dua al-Ma'rifah. The second verse says, Allahumma arifni rasulak, فإنك إن لم تعرفني رسولك لم أعرف حجتك. O Allah, make me recognize your Prophet, because if I do not recognize your Prophet, I will not recognize your proof. At this point, let us take the help of the Holy Quran, Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 59, to explain this verse. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes very clear that who are those who have authority over us, and who are those whom we should obey, and whose obedience has been made obligatory on us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amr minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those charged with authority among you, which means the wilayah. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly said that if you believe, you obey, you do itaat, not muhabba, and if you follow not only His commands, but also the commands and the rulings and the teachings of the appointed Prophet and those whom Allah has granted authority over us, which is the A'immah al-Athhar alayhi salatu wasalam. So let us go into the history and look at the history of verse number 1 of Surah Al-Ma'arij, Chapter 70, verse number 1, whereby it clearly shows what happens and what is the result of someone who does not conform to this. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sa'ala sa'ilun bi'adhabin waqi'ah. And the translation is, a questioner asked about the penalty to befall. A penalty? Yes. So what penalty is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about over here? To understand this verse, we need to understand the Shan and Nuzul of this verse. And what is the Shan and Nuzul of this verse? This verse happened and was revealed on the plains of Ghadir al-Qum, and it was revealed during the time when Rasulullah was proclaiming Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam as the wali and the wasi after him. And so what happens is this person called Harith bin Nu'man al-Fahri comes to Rasulullah and says that you commanded us to testify that there is no God but Allah, and that you are the messenger of Allah. We obeyed you. You ordered us to say prayers 5 times a day. We obeyed you. You directed us to pay zakat, and we obeyed. You ordered us to observe fast during the month of Shahr Ramadan. We obeyed. Then you commanded us to perform pilgrimage to the Kaaba. We obeyed. But you are not satisfied with all this, and you raised your cousin by the hand and imposed him upon us as our master by saying, Ali is the Mawla of whom I am Mawla. Is this imposition from you or from Allah? Now can you imagine, look at the language that he is using. How is he talking to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This clearly shows that he lacked ma'rifah. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied him, by Allah, who is the only God, this is from Allah, the Mighty, the Glorious. On hearing this, Harith turned back and proceeded towards the she-camel of his, and he said, O Allah, if what Muhammad says is true, then fling on us a stone from the sky and make us suffer severe pain and torture. And you know what happened? He had not even yet reached his she-camel, and a stone was descended and struck him on the head, and he died on the spot. It was on this occasion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse of Surah Al-Ma'arij. But our objective here is not to discuss Ghadir al-Khum. Our objective is to extract the moral of this incident. And what is the moral? The moral is that we realize what happened here. Harith had not fully accepted the wilayah and the authority of Allah and Rasulullah, so he could not digest the wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen over himself. Also, Harith had harbored bughz and hatred and jealousy towards Amirul Mu'mineen, so he could not accept it. And this is the reason why before announcing the mastership of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Rasulullah had gathered the people at Khum, and the first thing he asked them 3 times was, Alastu awla bi anfusikum, Alastu awla bi anfusikum, Alastu awla bi anfusikum. Don't I have a greater authority over you than you have over yourselves? Why was Rasulullah asking them? Does it make him pleased to just flaunt his authority? No. The reason was because to remind them of his nubuwah and risala, and to jolt them to remember that his authority is more over them. Today, at the rate at which we are dismissing the teachings of Rasulullah and the way our life is a classic ammunition of how we need to work towards our ma'rifah. Lest if Imam comes and we reject him, we deny him and fail to recognize him. And we will only be able to recognize him if we recognize and buckle down to the authorities of Allah and Rasulullah over us, as we see in the upcoming verse, which is the 3rd verse, in which we say, Allahumma arifni hujjatak, fa innaka illam tu'arifni hujjatak, dalaltu an dini. Allahumma arifni hujjatak, oh Allah, make me recognize your proof, fa innaka illam tu'arifni hujjatak. Because if I don't recognize your proof, dalaltu an dini, I will deviate from my religion. But before we dive in here, let us first establish what a Hujjah means. Who is Hujjatullah? In our last year's series of Tafseer of Ziyarat Ali Yasin, we explained what a Hujjah means. Therefore, today in a one-liner in brief, we'll just explain by saying that Hujjah is the proof or the final argument after which there's absolutely no excuse. There's no excuse that remains. And when we say the proof of Allah is complete, it implies that there is no chance of denial. Then if after that, if someone is denying or refusing to believe it, then that is their obstinacy and their ignorance. Now let us look at the importance of recognizing and acknowledging the Hujjah of Allah through the traditions and the hadiths of various A'immah al-Athhar alayhi salatu wasalam. In a tradition from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, or Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, as recorded in Wasail al-Shia, Imam says, a person cannot be a believer until he recognizes Allah, has a ma'rifah of the Holy Prophet and the Holy Imams, recognizing the Imam of his time and refers to them in all his affairs and submits to their command. In another tradition, Imam Baqir Ali Muhammad, Baqir al-Ulum alayhi salatu wasalam says, if a person spends nights in worship and days in fasting, spends all his prosperity in the way of Allah, in charity, sadaqah, and performs Hajj all his life every year, but he does not have the recognition of the guardianship of Allah's garden of Waliyyekal, all his deeds would be performed without the guidance, without the divine guide. Hence, he does not deserve any reward from Allah. Who is saying this? Baqirul Ulum al-Nabiyyin, the entity who has the knowledge of all the prophets that have come. He says that that person who performs deeds without the wilayah of the A'immah, he is not even considered a believer. And there is yet another tradition from Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, whereby he says anything that has not been propounded by our household is invalid. And he also remarks that there is no authentic knowledge in the east or in the west, in the mashriq or in the maghrib, that has not been expounded by our household. In another tradition recorded in Wasail al-Shia by Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. Now why so many traditions from Imam Muhammad Baqir and Imam Ja'far Sadiq? You know why? Because the reason is because during this time there was a conflict with the Abbasid and the Umayyads, and that was the period when these two Imams, especially Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, got the most time and the most opportunity to spread the word. And so what he did was he started to spread the word, and in spreading the word he prepared the people for the advent of the Mahdi and for the occultation, so that the people should not be deviated. So let's get back to this tradition of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam in Wasail al-Shia, whereby Imam says, the people have been ordered to recognize us. They must refer to us in their affairs. They must obey us completely. If they fast and pray and confess that there is no God except Allah, but they think that they do not refer to us, they think that they should not refer to us, they are like polytheists. Allahu Akbar. What is Imam saying? That the person who says that the Kitab, the Quran is kafi for them, is enough for them, they are in doom, they are in darks, they are polytheists. The matter has become absolutely clear in the light of the above traditions. How important is the knowing of the Hazrat Hujjah, however great a deed might be, but if it is not performed in the guidance of the Hujjah of Allah, it is worthless before Allah. At this point we may feel satisfied and say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, that we are among the followers of Imam al-Hujjah. But you know what? Does our duty and responsibility towards him and our deed end here? If it does, then what is the concept of Dalaltu an Dini? This means to say there is something huge here, and that huge thing is the ongoing pursuit of the ma'rifah. What do we mean? Inshallah, join us in the next clip to find out more. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma Ajjil Waliyyekal Faraj Shareef alayhi wassalatu wassalam.
نشستی کنار